Nestled just outside Charleston in the year 1815 stood the 6-mile Wayfarer House, a busy inn owned by a married couple named John and Lavinia Fisher. Townspeople knew them as a charming, generous, and hospitable pair. Business was quite good, and they were always happy to make space for the road-weary tradesmen traveling through town. It didn't hurt that Lavinia was strikingly beautiful. Her irresistible charm disarmed even the most timid of guests. In fact, it's said that Lavinia developed a bit of a nightly routine with her male patrons. After entertaining them with a pint of beer and listening to their tales from the road, Lavinia would show her visitors to their room, but not before leaving them with a cup of her special herbal tea. "It'll be the best sleep of your life," she would say. What she didn't mention was that it would also be the last. Lavinia's famous brew wasn't just a blend of herbs and tea leaves, but of pure, poisonous oleander. The unsuspecting men were dead in a matter of moments. With their lifeless bodies sprawled across the bed, Lavinia and her husband would lift open a trap door and watch as the bodies slid into a pit beneath the inn. There, the Fishers would strip their victims of valuables and leave them to rot. It seemed a foolproof scheme for the couple. After all, these tradesmen were from out of town. Who would come looking for them? Their routine worked for years, until, that is, a man named John Peoples came to stay. Unlike the travelers before him, Peoples was a suspicious type. He didn't take to Lavinia's inquisitive nature, and when she offered him a cup of her specialty brew, he sensed danger and only pretended to take a sip. Once alone in his room, Peoples feigned sleep, and when the Fishers crept back inside to finish him off, he sprang into action, fighting them off and fleeing into town to alert the police. Lavinia and John were soon arrested and held in Charleston's Old City Jail, where police began connecting them to the string of missing travelers. The Fishers insisted they were innocent, but public opinion was not on their side. There was no space in the holy city for a murderer like John or a conniving seductress like Lavinia. In 1820, the two were sentenced to hang. John went first, and he went quickly. But Lavinia refused to accept her fate. Back in those days, the law stated that married women couldn't be hanged. So in one final desperate attempt to escape the noose, it's said that Lavinia approached the platform wearing her wedding dress. Surely some eligible gentleman would take pity and marry her on the spot, so she could be free of this mess. To her horror, no such gentleman came forward, and when she realized her fate, a darkness passed over Lavinia's face. Her eyes went narrow, and she howled her last words to the throng below. "If anyone has a message for hell, give it to me! I'll carry it!" And with that, Lavinia Fisher met her end. They say Lavinia was so vile, the devil wouldn't take her. To this day, her vengeful ghost haunts the Old City Jail, where people say they've seen her pacing the halls or peering through windows, cursing and vowing revenge.
We're back, episode 3. So this episode we are so pumped about because we are talking about the first female serial killer and the creepy jails and dungeons in downtown Charleston.
Yeah.
And you guys just heard the story of the first female serial killer, Lavinia Fisher.
Absolutely. And we're going to play a quick game.
Oh, God.
It's probably not going to be quick, but
okay.
I'm excited. I figured this would be the most fun way to talk about the story that we just heard, because we call her the first female serial killer, which makes her stand out in history, to find out that she may not have actually killed anyone.
Yeah.
Like literally anyone, to make her a serial killer. So we're going to play a little game called, that I'd like to call, Fact or Folklore. So let's play.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna break down this myth, this folklore, and you're gonna tell me if you actually think this happened or if it's folklore. Okay.
Okay.
So the story started by telling us she's the first serial killer, right? That would mean she was convicted of murder.
Multiple times.
Multiple murders.
Isn't it like you have to kill 3 people to be considered a serial killer?
I think so. Or
3 or more?
Yeah.
Or 2 or more?
I don't actually know what the...
Wait, I think there's like a span of time too. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, yes.
There definitely are rules.
Okay.
To getting that title, right? So is that fact or folklore?
Well, now I think it's folklore because you're taking the fun out of it.
I am. She wasn't even convicted of murder to make her a serial killer. When Lavinia Fisher was brought to trial with her husband, John, they were like a dynamic duo, very Bonnie and Clyde-esque. Mm-hmm. They were actually convicted of highway robbery, not murder.
That's hilarious.
They also had assault charges with intent of murder, but were not actually convicted of murder because no bodies were found. There was a lack of evidence.
Do they think that there was murder? They just never found bodies?
It could be possible if the people they said were missing really were actually missing.
Right.
But they weren't.
Well, there's this whole theory that there was either one house or there were 2 houses, because as highway robbers, they had this place that was called 6 Mile House because it was literally 6 miles north of Charleston.
Okay.
And since Charleston was like bustling at this time and, just this huge port, it had all of these rich people there, all of these things. It was a great place to rob.
Yeah.
Okay. Like
Makes sense.
Thieves like really knew what they were
made
doing.
out.
Yeah. It was, honestly compared to New York City at the time.
Yeah.
Which is wild knowing how small Charleston is, but I guess technically
compared to the city. Yeah.
I don't know. But anywho, the inn that they said they lured these people off the highway in, there was also apparently a 5 Mile House. I never really found any more information about the 5 Mile House, but the 6 Mile House was allegedly either a hideout for outlaws or it was an inn. Okay. So picture it that you're in your little wagon and, you pull off that little dirt trail and you see this woman standing there, like waiting to like usher you in.
Welcome you.
Yeah. So fact or folklore? She's gorgeous. Have you seen the pictures of her?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a hottie.
It is a fact. Yeah.
She's a dime piece.
And almost everyone that reported something on her said the same thing. She has raven black hair, porcelain white skin, and these like bright blue eyes.
So she's like the perfect.
So she's Megan Fox. Okay,
snake.
keep going.
Oh, okay, yes.
She's Megan Fox.
Yeah,
Charleston.
visual. That's a good visual.
All right. And this is like the early 19th century, right? So I feel like those features like really stand out. And she's got that little like southern drawl.
Yeah.
And she's like, just come in, honey, for a little cup of tea,
And you gonna die.
Right.
And what's the time?
So her backstory, like where she came from, where she was born, completely unknown.
Yeah.
It really, like she's not even like documented until all of these things went down in 1820.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, putting that into perspective too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, I had 1819 in my notes too, and I think that like I read a couple different stories. 1819, 1820, 1821, 1818.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally just that time. And I think because this is probably stretched out, right? Like
it was a year?
A year, full year, yeah.
Yeah, so yes, 1819. Let's pretend we're in 1819.
Okay.
Because the hanging
Yeah.
was in 1820. So, but she knows she's beautiful. Right? We've all known those women.
Yep.
Like she knows she's going to get away with anything just by smiling.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us to the bulk of this story. Do we think it's fact or folklore that there was a trap door under the bed of where the guests stood?
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking though. How does that work? Because if it's multiple stories, do you just have one poop chute where all these beds are flying down?
Yeah. But also, like,
I really want it to be true.
How can we prove that it's not real?
So unfortunately,
the house burned down. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Beast it.
Exactly. And on purpose, too. So
Right.
they really weren't thinking about long-term, like, people want to know this story. You should not have burned the house down. But allegedly, that was folklore anyway. There weren't even human remains found within where the 6 Mile house was. Apparently, 2 bodies were found on the property, but they couldn't decide. They couldn't come up with if they were actually murdered, if they were just buried
they died
there.
on their own.
Like, buried there, yeah.
Happenstance here. Yeah.
I mean, everyone back then used to bury their family on their land.
Yeah.
Like, cemeteries weren't a big thing. Like, if you had a family property, that's where your family was buried.
Also, I was just thinking about the concept of the bed and the trapdoor.
And the lever.
And I'm envisioning like a queen size bed because in my mind, like that's what you have, a queen size bed or like full size bed. And then I'm like, wait, no. Back then, it was probably like a twin size because they didn't have big beds. They had tiny little
I actually read that
beds.
with inns like this, people used to share a bed.
Yeah.
Like people would be like 3 to a bed.
Yeah.
What?
So maybe it was a larger bed, but I'm just like, how big was this bed that's going through this trap? Like, this would be a really big trap door.
And was it like bolted to the door? Because then, like, how would it go back? Or like, did it drop into the pit?
In my brain, it's like 2 doors that come together in the middle and they just like fly down and the bed kind of folds like a sandwich and they fall down.
Yeah.
But like,
I think of
that honestly sounds fun.
I think of stage doors. So if you have like on a stage, right? A lot of times what they'll do is one that is literally like a ramp.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like it goes down and then whatever needs to go into the like below the stage.
I just don't
goes
see
down.
how that technology or invention of some kind could have been around.
Was the wheel like how
Yes,
is
the
the
wheel
bed
was around
moving?
That's
Are
what
they
I'm thinking.
pushing the bed?
I don't know.
Okay.
Lavinia, if you're here,
Yes.
please
let us
tell
know.
us.
Please let us know.
And that right there, I think, is why that one is an obvious folklore. The real question is, she has this great charm, fact or folklore. Her drug of choice, if you will, was poison. This whole tea concept that she would lure them in, give them the tea, and have the poison
so
in
much.
It's so unsuspecting. This beautiful woman offering you tea after being on the road for a long trip.
That one I cannot prove either fact or folklore. That one might have been true. I did find a discrepancy between what she used. Some people say it was oleander. The other one was a tincture of opium made of air-dried poppy. And I found that interesting because the moment I hear poppy, I think of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, correlation?
Well, here's the other thing, too. I mean, that is a fun correlation. Mm-hmm. Maybe her and her husband were giving them this tea just to get them to go to sleep so that while they were asleep, they could break into their rooms and rob them. Shit.
Sure.
Right. And they got someone got super pissed off about that. Mr. Peoples here, Mr. Pepples, Mr. John Peoples, he got super pissed because he got robbed and had a little hissy fit. Because if they were murdering everyone that came in there, what?
You'd think that they'd find the bodies.
And it would start to smell. This is the South, and it gets hot, even underground. Mm-hmm. Like, where they would add up, it would start to be stinky.
Well, and it's not just, it's like humid.
Ew.
Not, like, can you imagine several bodies decomposing in your basement?
And at one point, they tried saying that John Fisher admitted to it and said after he lost count after 15 or 20 of them. And I'm like, all right there.
Come on.
Like, you're going to tell me no bones were uncovered? Like, okay, burn down the house. But it'd be under the house anyway, right? We would find something at this point.
Unless they did something with the bodies.
I think they're just trying to make them seem scarier than anything. Because
it's a story.
Highway robbery, right? It's just robbery.
Yeah.
They're just stealing people's money, jewels, whatever it is.
And this is pirate, like, central. So,
yes.
I mean, that stuff's been going on there as a port town. Of course, there was robbery.
So there actually was something that simultaneously happened, allegedly, at the same time as John Peoples. So it's February 1819, and things are about to hit that fever pitch. So they said, allegedly, all these people were going missing, and the people of Charleston were getting mad. They were like, yo, police, you need to do something about this. But there was literally no evidence for them to investigate. So at this time, people were actually allowed to make their own kind of lynch mob and take matters into their own hand. So they called it a vigilante gang. went to 6 Mile.
I just think of Beauty and the Beast when they go to get the beast.
That. Oh, yeah. Pitchforks and torches.
I'm thinking of Taylor Swift vigilante shit. Great song. Great song.
So this gang of townspeople show up. This is allegedly a fact, and made everyone that was in this inn vacate. So it's empty. Okay. And they leave this guy named David Ross to kind of stand guard and watch the area to make sure nobody comes in. Yeah. Well, unfortunately,
someone comes in.
The Fishers and their posse, their highwaymen, come back, beat the living crap out of Ross over here. And allegedly, Lavinia Fisher was in on it, having choked him and smashed his head through a window.
Well,
all right.
That's not very nice, but...
Now, he escaped.
Oh.
He did get away.
Okay.
And it says that this happens, like, at the same time that John Peoples shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do we think? Fact or fiction? John Peoples' story, that he goes in, he doesn't like tea, so he doesn't drink the tea, goes into the room, feels like he just has this uncomfortable feeling. He feels like he hears them whispering. He's just got that bad...
Juju?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like... I'm going to stay awake. He starts nodding off in a chair. And that's when he hears the trap door. So they think he's sleeping. The trap door opens. He freaks out, goes out the window, and heads to Charleston and reports them to the police. Do we think that is fact or folklore?
I want it to be fact so bad.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I feel like some of the story might be true. I don't know that I'm believing the trapdoor, but maybe he did hear someone trying to break into the room. Like maybe someone was trying to steal his stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the, like, he didn't drink the tea, so he didn't pass out. So they were breaking into the room to steal shit, and he felt uncomfortable. I believe all of that. I could see that being real.
And he would be the only eyewitness then that the trapdoor was real.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is folklore. Apparently, he was just walking by at the wrong time, or riding by, I should say, to water his horse. And I can't picture this. Like, they're beating the crud out of Ross over here, right? And this poor guy, just wrong place, the wrong time, shows up to water his horse. And Lavinia Fisher just, like, fixes her hair real fast. She's like, oh, hi.
Would you like some tea?
In. Yeah. And so apparently the tea part was true, but he felt uneasy, and everyone was still there. There were like 9 or 10 of them that wound up ganging up on him, robbing him, beating him, all the things. And again, he managed to get away, get on his horse, and ride to Charleston. So when he brought the police back now, everyone was arrested, and during a lineup, Peoples identified William Hayward, who was in their posse, and John and Lavinia.
Now, that sounds like an embarrassed man.
Yeah.
Who was pissed off and embarrassed because he got the crap beat out of him by a woman and her henchmen, and comes back to seek vengeance upon them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, allegedly, they took $40 from him.
I mean,
that's a lot of money then.
That's a lot of dollars.
So now we're into the best part of it. Okay. Now they, right? As a couple. Think about that. That's why I keep thinking Bonnie
They
Wild.
must have had the most robust sex life. Like, what fun they were having together.
He seems to have idolized her, in my opinion. You know, like, surrendered everyone at the house so that she didn't come under gunfire. There was even a moment that they were actually celled together because couples shared a cell. It was like a 6x8 cell. And they actually planned an escape, like total tie the bed linens together and go out the window or something. Yeah. And it broke, and she got trapped in the jail while the other two got out. And he literally like came back. Yeah.
But the other guy did not?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to be like,
fair.
Oh my God, that's so cute. Yeah, you're wanted for so many crimes. I can't think this is cute. I can't.
I think it's adorable.
I mean, yeah, right?
I've read these books. They're fantastic.
It is very Bonnie and Clyde.
It is. And I think I also just watched The Highwaymen with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like so in my mind right now. Now, I can tell you for a fact, it was reported that they found the skin of a stolen cow at the house.
Well, now that.
And the 2 bodies that I mentioned.
How do they know?
You know what this is? This is the skin of a cow. Bet you it was stolen. Bet you it was stolen.
Well, I guess like they probably marked them, right? They brand the cows. Like, so maybe it had like the person's brand on the skin.
Sure.
Hilarious.
I just picture it because I'm like, this is an inn.
Yeah.
Where was the skin that they found it? Like,
isn't that just called
like
leather?
Chilling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
They found leather. No.
But then they set the house on fire. This is around. Why? Why would you do that?
I feel like this happened a lot. They just burnt things
because
down.
if the house is burnt down, they can be like, oh, well, any evidence to prove them innocent is gone now.
Well, and did they even really care about evidence back then?
No.
It really seems like the rules were very different.
There were no rules.
Especially in this Charleston area.
Yes.
Which I think we'll see a little bit more when we talk about the jails.
Yeah.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
So fact or folklore that she thought she was going to get away with it.
Oh, fact.
I think,
she 100%. Mm-hmm. She was like, I'm too hot to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has been documented saying that there was no way they would actually convict her or execute her because she was a married woman.
Yep.
And at the time, you couldn't be executed if you were a married woman.
Yeah.
That's wild. And that...
I'm so screwed.
Well, because you're somebody's property.
And
you can't destroy another man's property. Like, that was the whole...
Wow, you just put that into such real perspective.
Dark.
Oh. But she also thought that if she was standing up there in her wedding dress, which is my next factor folklore, was she actually executed in her wedding dress? And she pleaded to the crowd that someone would literally fall in love and propose marriage and save her.
Because her husband was dead and now she's a widow? Because he died first?
So yes, we did mention that, right?
Yeah.
That is actually a fact, that loophole.
Yeah.
The court realized that if they execute John first, then she's
a widow.
Way around. I love that workaround.
I believe that she truly thought that she would, like, someone would be like, no, I will marry her. Let her go.
Pretty privilege, you know?
I mean, but would that have worked? Like, it's
also,
not like she was up there and they were like, if anyone will take her,
yeah,
like, let her
before go. In a wedding, when you're like, would anyone like to speak against this marriage? They're like, would any of you guys like this super hot lady before we kill her? No.
But also,
she may kill you in your sleep.
How did she get her wedding dress?
So do we think that's fact or fiction?
I think it's fiction.
I think it's fiction, but wow, what a great visual.
Yeah.
So when I was in Charleston and I went on my ghost tour, they brought up Lavinia Fisher. I went to the place where she had been hanged, and that was part of the story, that she was hanged in her wedding dress. And I think that kind of relates back to A Lady in White and kind of all those things.
Yeah, because she's a ghosty ghost.
But how could she have her wedding dress if they burned her house down?
Well, that and like, did she take her wedding dress when she was arrested?
And that's why I will say that is folklore, because they said that there was a typical outfit that they would give people who were about to be executed. It was this standard robe of some kind, but it was loose fitting and it was white.
So maybe it looked like a dress.
Ooh, easy way to manipulate that.
Yes.
Whoever thought that, though, really put an edge to
their
the story.
Their name was M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started because he's coming out with a new movie and Josh Hartnett's in it.
I'm excited. I did see that. Okay.
So they're at the Old City Jail.
Yes.
For a year. Like I said, they tried to escape. Didn't happen. While they're there, John actually turns more towards religion. He starts meeting with this pastor, and that is actually a fact. He really insisted on his innocence all the way up until he was executed in front of this crowd of 2,000 people.
Which is a lot of people.
That is a lot of people.
Now,
that had to be like the whole town.
Yeah, it had to be everybody.
Like women, children.
Would you go watch somebody
think about the time?
I think
there's nothing happening. So what do? You go watch the town hanging.
How many movies from that time period have you watched? This is, talk about fiction. But like when you're watching Outlander, or one of my favorite movies in the world, A Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
These people are in the stockades, which we know are really like public humiliation was like a pastime for people. Like, oh, I've got 20 minutes to kill. Let me take this rotten beet and just go throw it at the guy in the town square. That sounds fun.
Oh, there's a flogging at noon. Yeah, let's go over and watch it real quick.
I can make it work.
I guess I've just always been really confused about it because I feel like people were more religious back then, right? And if you are so pious, how can you watch someone be
We grew up, I know you, I grew up very Catholic. Mm-hmm. And my mom would always talk about how growing up, physical abuse was beating sin out of you.
Yes. Sure.
So they truly believed that in order to get the demons out of somebody or the sin out of somebody, it was physical violence.
Yeah. I think too.
But then you'd be dead and they can't do good anymore.
But they believe.
They don't care.
Well, and I think to add to that, I think they believed that that's God's will.
Yeah.
For you to die?
If you're able to be beaten, then that was what's supposed to happen.
Makes no sense to me.
All right. Well, Lavinia,
let me just say, it kind of sounds like it didn't make much sense to her either because she was not having it. So John goes very willingly. Maybe he even thought that like if he pleaded to the crowd, that they would forgive him. Yeah, that didn't happen. So now she's widow. Now she can be hanged. I mean, what do you think about her final words? Fact or folklore?
I need it to be fact because it's absolutely incredible.
Same.
Well, I'm happy to say it is a fact.
Yes.
It is a fact. Yes. So I just picture this. Like, if they haven't made this a movie, they really need to. So not only is she throwing a fit, like as she's in the carriage going to be executed, like they literally have to drag her out and up to the gallows. Okay. And she's not going quietly. And I don't mean just like screaming, begging for her life. It has been cited by a historian that she stamped in rage and swore with all the vehemence of her amazing vocabulary, calling down damnation on a governor who would let a woman swing. The crowd stood shocked into silence while she cut short one curse with another and ended with a volley of shrieks. So she was not going quietly.
I love that.
I mean, it makes sense, though. It puts her... I think of her as like a character, but it puts her in a perfect, like, this is her through and through. Like, she truly believed.
She never changed herself.
No, and she believed that she was going to get off. And so till the very last minute, she still thought, there's no way they're going to hang me.
Mm-hmm. And then...
Wild.
And then even the pastor tried to like calm her down and was just like, you need to come to Jesus moment. You know, like, let's make peace with God, kind of what you guys were just saying. And her full quote is cease, she said to the pastor. I love that. I'm going to start using that instead of like shut up or anything, like cease. Okay. I will have none of it. Save your words for others that want them. But if you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me. I'll carry it.
And that's what we finished our story with to start the episode. And that is
epic.
Just gives me chills. Not going to lie.
We need t-shirts. We're going to make t-shirts with that on it.
So two last quick ones. Fact or folklore? She jumped off the stage after she said that.
Okay, so I've read that, and I'm going to have to say that that's folklore. You should just say fact, because one of us will be right.
Here's my thing. This is me like envisioning this happening, right? So sometimes they like put them up on benches, and then sometimes it's just a board, and then like it just comes out, underneath them. So I feel like if she was on a bench, I could totally see her jumping.
Yeah.
Like out of spite.
But what if it was a trap door? And they were like, you reap what you sow, girl.
Exactly.
I love that irony.
Yeah. That's for the movie we're making.
Yeah. I will have to say folklore because it's not documented. Some places say she jumped. Some places say that she was dropped. Yeah. Like you said with the trapdoor.
Yeah.
And the last big myth is a really great segue into what you're going to be elaborating on is where was she buried?
Ooh.
Yeah. It's said that she's buried under the jail.
And I also found some people believe she's at the Circular Congregational Church on Meeting Street. That one. We talked about the Unitarian Church. Yep, that one, allegedly. She might be there because they say that she haunts those. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is folklore. It was said that both of them were buried in a potter's field near the old city jail.
Okay.
So I think the possibility of her haunting that jail way more likely than her haunting these random churches that she had no affiliation with.
Or she just wanders around.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what a potter's field is? Because I had to look it up, and I just think it's a really cool fact.
No, I have no idea.
So it originated from the Bible, and they're called potter's field because people who literally made pots would dig for clay.
In the fields?
In this field, yeah. And it became a place conveniently full of trenches and holes for the burial of strangers. So these were where you kind of got, unfortunately,
it's
buried.
a John Doe burial ground.
Yes.
John and Jane Doe.
Mostly like mass graves. And then they'd put like a plaque with like the numbers on it.
Oh, but those are haunted as heck.
And I mean,
oh my gosh.
Think about how many people in Charleston alone.
There's a lot.
So thanks for playing my game.
That was a good one.
It was fun.
I mean, for the movie, what do we do for her?
Now you have me picturing Megan Fox.
Megan Fox would be such a good Lavinia Fisher.
But I showed you that picture of the girl from Outlander. Yeah, that I think really looks like her.
The girl that
we don't like.
We hate her. She thinks that Claire. She tells everyone that Claire.
The one who tries to seduce Jamie.
Oh, yes, God, that little.
Well, she marries Jamie.
No, not Leary.
No, this one.
This one. She winds up. She's pregnant in the last season.
Oh, I didn't watch the last season.
God. Okay, I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, Dayelle.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Everyone.
Malva. That was her name.
Yeah.
Malva.
Sorry.
And her dad is like insanely religious.
Yeah.
Well,
girl, get on that Outlander train.
Spoiler.
I'll watch it with you.
Guys, we'll save that for the Patreon episode when Dayelle finally watches it. So I'm talking about the Old City Jail, which feels like a natural lineation because that's, where
the story takes
Lavinia
place.
and John were held. It's known for housing the city's most disturbed criminals. And that included soldiers, Civil War prisoners, thieves, pirates. We talked about all the pirates that were there.
I'm kind of pirate obsessed now because
I know. And you know what's so funny is pirates to me got very Disney-fied, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because of Pirates of the Caribbean, which I love, by the way.
Sure.
But
no shade.
I mean, who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
Also, back to Outlander. Apparently, this is just an Outlander fan podcast as well. Just the way that Mr. Bonnet is portrayed in Outlander, I never thought of him as a pirate.
Yeah.
Until later in the season, I was like, oh my God, that is literally what a pirate is. Yeah. Because in our heads, we're very Blackbeard pirates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Captain Hook.
Yeah. And that's truly what they look like. So that's just, anyway, that's sidebar. So unbelievably,
is this one of the oldest buildings in Charleston?
This is your favorite thing. I was just going to say, I know you guys won't be able to believe this, but this is the city's most haunted building.
Oh, okay.
I can't believe it.
That's crazy.
I can't believe it.
Okay.
So just to give you some visuals, the jail is quite beautiful, hauntingly beautiful, I would say.
Is it the most haunted building in Charleston?
It really is. So it's gray and grim. It was built in 1802, and this original version was until 1939. But thousands and thousands.
It's a long run.
Very long run. Men, women, and children. They used to jail children, which is just so, and let them die.
That just makes me think of like someone stealing bread,
And yes, and it's exactly why. And so,
please, sir,
may I have another? They say that all of those unsettled spirits haunt the jail today. So
without a doubt.
I think we're already starting off with a really good base of why this building is haunted. But the guides, when you go on the tours, will tell you that the shows Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and Paranormal State have all been there to do. And every single one of those shows have had actual paranormal experiences there.
There are a lot of clips on YouTube.
Yeah. And so originally when it was built, it was located on a 4-acre parcel that was set aside for public use in 1680. So a little bit before then. And that was when Charleston had its original settlement. And it was originally, like I said, their jail where they'd put all of their war criminals and all that kind of stuff. But in 1855, they made a little alteration to the building with this like octagon shaped wing in the back of the jail that was fireproof. And why do we think they did that?
Jesus.
Because this whole, what was our fire insurance, guys? They probably came in, they're like, we've got a deal for you.
The friendly fireman.
Yeah. But it was designed by our boy, Robert Mills. I
have so many questions about that. Like, what made it fireproof during this time?
We'll have to ask him. I'll text him later. Yeah. And then there was an earthquake in 1886 that damaged that beautiful tower.
Charleston got hit with every bit of Mother Nature that existed.
Hurricanes.
tornadoes. Like
fires.
Earthquakes, fires. Like, poor Charleston, man.
I know. But
they persevered.
The Civil War was actually where, during the time of the Civil War, this is where a lot of prisoners were held. And they would just let them die. They didn't feed them. They didn't give them water. They would just put them downstairs, hide them, lock the door, and they'd die. And so they just didn't care. You know what I mean? So it was already haunted. And there is a picture that I found when we first started doing the research for this. It's pretty, I'll make sure we throw it up on our socials, but it's a picture of Lavinia sitting behind bars underground in the dungeon holding the bars, and she's smiling like a little creep. And of course, this is like just an artistic rendition, but I loved it. And it's not just her. She was not the only person that was super well known that was there. Jacques Alexander Tardy was there from 1825 to 1827 because he tried to steal a pilot boat. We'll talk about him in our bonus episode, but this is where Denmark Vesey was held after they accused him of planning a slave riot, and then he was executed in 1822. And so that's a really...
So there were some high-profile inmates.
Profile.
Yeah.
And they decommissioned this bad boy in 1839. Can't imagine why. The American College Building of Arts acquired it in 2000 to use it for the campus and headquarters. Shan't we talk about that, folks? Let's just use that, and they said, we're going to save America's treasures. And this is part of the project for the National Trust of Historic Preservation and the White House Millennium Council. You know what, guys?
That's a mouthful.
Sure is. Only it lasted 16 years. And then they were like, we're going to move out of the jail in the summer of 2016.
Yeah.
Can't imagine why. So now they added a staircase and an elevator so it could meet code. Like, really, guys? Really? And this is
Does
after...
it have a bathroom?
Well, who knows? And this is after...
Indoor plumbing.
Probably not. $15 million renovation that was put into this building to preserve it. And now it's a museum. And of course, we can do tours and stuff. But I mean, this goes without saying, our first haunting, the most popular, is our girl Lavinia.
Yeah.
And John, and people say they can see her walking around the halls with her wedding dress, and they hear
probably a robe,
which is a robe. But people that work there, especially now, like, so we have a lot of modern stories for this. People that go do tours there, they say that they go in and they feel it, right? And that's something that I think we're just hearing again and again and again in all of these stories.
It makes Dayelle want to throw up.
Yeah, it makes Dayelle want to do a pukey puke. And also there's a feeling that people get.
That feeling.
And when they're doing the tours, people feel things on the back of their necks. They feel their hair move. They feel someone stroke their arm.
I actually read because of Lavinia and her appeal to shiny, sparkly jewels and things like that, that if you go on a tour, don't wear
jewelry.
Well, that's hilarious because now I'm wearing my engagement ring.
I totally would. I definitely feel like I would provoke it.
Yeah. And then the people that work there say that doors slam all the time. Doors that they didn't even know were functioning are slamming. They're like, that is a wrought iron door. How did that shut? We haven't been able to shut that stupid thing in 100 years.
Yeah.
And they hear,
you're
of
not
course,
supposed to shut the door.
Well, we'll learn that later. There's ghostly whispers, of course. But one of my favorite modern accounts was in 2000.
Oh, yay.
So the prison was undergoing that big renovation for the college to buy it. And so it had been sealed off for months and months and months to avoid the lead paint contamination because they were redoing it.
Fair.
Delicious. So when the construction workers came back, they discovered in the dust there were human footprints. Not just adult human footprints, but little tiny baby human footprints.
Stop. Like, you think it was bare feet or
bare feet?
Oh my God.
Not like shoes, like bare feet footprints.
Like
and when they were prisoners there, they took off your shoes because they had to strip you down to nothing so you couldn't utilize anything to escape. And then one night,
I blame Lavinia and John for that and their stupid linen rope that they tried to make.
Well, I mean, we've seen Orange is the New Black. Everyone tries it.
Fair.
One night, they saw the people working there, construction workers, saw a ghost of a former prison guard that was apparently holding a rifle in his hand, and he was patrolling the 3rd and 4th floor jail. And the guard would charge towards the construction workers because they had to work overnights, because it's
my God.
This is the year 2000 where tourism is bustling. So they couldn't be doing this during the day because it was still open as a museum. So the guard would be charging towards them. And then when he'd get really close, he would disappear. And he thought that they think that the guard thought they were inmates that were trying to have a jailbreak because they were just free roaming. And one of, like you said, the vanishing jewelry is another one. There's this woman named Christiane. She took the tour of the old jail back in 2012, and she was with her husband, and she was pretty nervous because this is her first ghost tour. Which, first of all, if this is your first ghost tour,
That's
start
impressive.
gentle.
My first ghost tour was Charleston as well.
Fantastic. So the gentleman that was doing her little tour said, take as many pictures as you want. Take as many pictures as you want, because a lot of times we don't, know these ghost stories until you get home and develop your film and like see these things. Okay.
I heard that in Salem too.
Yeah.
I did not see anything.
It's a creep show anyway. So nobody saw anything out of the ordinary in the tour. It was just like more fact forward. So as the group's going through, they reach the second floor, which is where John and Lavinia Fisher, they believe, were held while they awaited the execution. So not where they were held while they were prisoners, but this is the room that you went to before you're about to kick the bucket.
Oh, okay.
So Christiane, she's like taking her little pictures, and she took some shots with the flash off, and then she didn't see anything on the picture except for a little dark image. So she get home, the tour was open.
Dayelle looks so uncomfortable right now.
She's super bummed because she's like, oh man, my first ghost tour, I didn't say anything spooky. That sucks. And so she's going through her pictures, and she wanted to show her friends because she was like, I didn't get any ghosts on these pictures. I just wanted to show you guys like all of the, spooky story thing, but this is what it looked like. And when she got to the picture that she took with the flash off by mistake on the second floor, the photos were not black like she thought when she first took them. You could see two images sitting right next to each other, man and woman, on the bench that John and Lavinia Fisher were.
Okay, if you're listening, could you please tag us? I would like to see this picture.
And she said to her husband, oh my God, could this be John and Lavinia Fisher? And people, I mean, obviously that's a great story.
Yeah,
I didn't see the picture. We need to find this picture.
Yeah.
I will dig into it. But one of my favorite things about this, and this kind of goes back to Dayelle's tummy ache stories. People say that when you walk by the jail, and you guys have, and I have not, they say if you walk by the jail at night, it is colder. Mm-hmm. Like you just feel colder. Like it feels like a cold gust of wind, which scientifically could be explained because it is a very large brick building. Yeah, right. So it is blocking the heat all day long, all that kind of stuff. But if you stand outside, because a lot of people take pictures of this, if you're standing outside taking pictures of this, people will still feel things brush past them. And our girl Lavinia, they say if you wait long enough, you can watch her walking throughout the jail in the windows, like in her, what we're calling a wedding dress, but is a robe. I mean, goes without saying, a jail where everybody was held prisoner, where they just kind of threw you in there, it's not like we had jail conditions to worry about. Obviously, it's going to be haunted.
Oh, that
goes without saying.
I mean, did you by any chance see how many people possibly died there? I mean, the fact that it was open.
Thousands.
Yeah, like over 100 years. Come on.
Thousands of people.
And people are angry and they're dying in horrible conditions. And that's why they say people are haunted, right?
I mean, it makes sense.
It is definitely one of those things like, I want to do the nighttime tour. Didn't you say there's a nighttime tour?
Yeah.
Of the jail?
Well, there is of the story that I'm going to tell.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So, Dayelle, bring us even creepier, further down into the creep show, shall you?
I'm so excited.
Me too.
You know what's funny is just like listening to the jail story, there's so many similarities to what now I'm going to talk about, which is...
Because it's very similar.
It's very similar.
And I'm going to look up a picture of the place that you're talking about.
Yes, please do. Interior.
The Old City Jail was definitely... I did not see that when I was in Charleston, but I feel like maybe it must have been that one.
I would almost guarantee you saw the old exchange building and the provost. Well, I don't know if you saw the dungeon. So
I didn't go in, but I feel like it's what I walked by because there were like fake skeletons of pirates hanging off of it.
Yeah. It's on a cobblestone, like a main cobblestone street, and you walk by it, and it looks really cute. It looks cute on the outside.
Oh my God, that is the creep show. Okay, I'll let you explain it because that is creepy as hell.
Yeah, so to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, when you go inside of this, what is now a museum, it's owned by the South Carolina Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Emily Gilmore?
Yep. It's operated as a history museum, and so they have exhibits and they do tours, all this fun stuff. So from the outside, it looks like just kind of like a government building.
Sure,
it's very,
like a post office even.
Yeah, it's very like not, super, it's not creepy at all. Like I walked past this building probably 3 times and had no idea what was on the inside.
Absolutely.
So I'll start this off.
That's even creepier.
Look at it back in the day.
Yeah. And it doesn't look creepy then either.
It's almost
like a normal
Greek neoclassic architecture with those columns and spires and things like that.
So it's located on 122 East Bay Street, which is kind of one of the main, or I should say it's off one of the main streets that a lot of people go down. So if you go down it, you'll see it. And there's all these like pirate like things on the outside to kind of draw you to the museum. I did not take the tour, but it looked really fun. And so it was built between 1767 and 1771. And it started out as a place of customs and business. So the first floor was used as an open trading space. So people would come and trade. So very like normal, not super creepy, nothing scary. There were cellars that they kept like all of their excess supplies and stuff for storage. And then there was the dungeon.
Why would there be a dungeon in this building?
Exactly. That's what you're going to find out.
Okay.
So the dungeon has been called one of the worst prisons in the United States.
Oh.
It held prisoners in some of the worst conditions you could possibly imagine. Like, I mean, I can't imagine what that would be like. Most prisoners died before they received any kind of punishment or execution.
Trial?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, that was not a thing.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding. Just like, you die now.
Exactly. And so the first floor, you kind of walk in and it's just... Again, it's just like an open space, so it's where they did all the trading, so it's not super scary. You kind of like, oh, this isn't bad. This is gonna be fine. When you enter into the dungeon, you enter into a pit, and the pit collects. There's usually like standing water in the pit.
Of course there is.
Because seawater seeps in, and it causes it to smell very musty and moldy, and so it always has this just terrible smell. They pump it out constantly, but it just is always very damp. And so you walk in there, and so there's this pit. Apparently, several prisoners drowned in that pit specifically. Mm-hmm. And kind of just like a fun little tidbit that I found while looking this up is the pit has like a blue hue to it, and it was because they used to store indigo in the pit. And so to this day, it still has like a blue glow, but it's very eerie.
They did that.
So, and then the other part of the dungeon, the ceilings are arched. So like you're walking through and there's all these like arches and stuff, and like each one, there weren't cells, they were just chained them to the walls.
Uh-huh.
Right? Okay, so it's kind of known like they say like the Charlestonians were not aware of what was going on in the dungeon. Like the dungeon was kind of, they didn't talk about it. And if they did know about it, they assumed the criminals were supposed to be there and whatever was coming, they were deserving of it. Some people believed that because so many people died in the dungeon, there's a lot of like ghost stories and stuff that kind of like revolve around the dungeon because of that. And a lot of people believe that the ghosts that haunt the space are either people who are just, they had died there and they weren't guilty of any crime, so they're trying to tell their story. And then other ghosts they believe are out for revenge because they were tortured or other terrible, terrible things. So people who have gone, one of the things that they do at this museum is they do nighttime tours. And you can go during the day, but at night apparently is where you see all of or hear or feel the good stuff, right? And so they say like a lot of people who go in hear moaning sounds or crying sounds.
Oh, that's depressing.
And then there's also, so in the dungeon, they've now made animatronic mannequins that depict what it would have looked like when it was being used.
That's the creepiest thing you've said so far.
Super creepy. And people have sworn that when they're getting the tour, the mannequin's eyes follow them.
Okay.
So that's kind of like that makes sense, right? That's creepy. They also have said that like the mannequins themselves will move with you, but like obviously if they're animatronic, they're going to move.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the ways they're supposed to be moving. So people are like, that's really creepy. One of the tour guides tells a story about when she was giving a tour. There's chains that are like in front of each of the little exhibits where all these like mannequins are, obviously to keep people from going into where they are. The chains just start rattling.
Of course they do.
And there's no wind.
You read my mind.
It's a dungeon, right? There's no airflow. There's nothing. And she just kind of is like, okay, maybe a guest bumped into it, you know? But then all of the chains in the dungeon start shaking. And not just like a bumped into, they were actually shaking and moving on their own. And I do like think about it, you're like, chains don't move on their own unless they're touched or...
And with a little bit of force, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So she says, like, this is happening. She very quickly gets the entire group of people out of the dungeon and gets them outside, apologizes.
I would be like, you're welcome. That's the best tour I've ever given.
Yeah.
Well, it gets creepier because she then goes on to tell the people that were in the tour guide that this is not the first time something like this has happened to her. She said that on another time that she was getting ready to do a tour, she went to open up the door to the dungeon and was pushed back and could not get into the dungeon. So that's like, what? But this isn't even the main story.
Oh my God.
So that was just like a little like tour guide story.
You know, as a tour guide.
Yes.
I don't think I would have left. My brain would so be like, this is fucking sucks, but
what's going on?
I got to finish this tour because these people paid for an hour. You know, like I give her credit for being like, we're going to move.
Yeah.
We're going to move. You know, I probably would have put everybody in harm's way.
I think like...
Deena would be like, feel free to tip me at the end, folks, for this interactive 4D experience.
Well, and I think like I can only imagine like in her mind, she's got probably a group of like, what do you think? Maybe like 6 people, 10 people.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden this starts happening. I would assume she's looking at it as like, you know, she wants to make sure everyone's safe. So like, even though, I mean, clearly she's not afraid because she had that other thing happen to her and then continued to do tours.
Yeah.
So like, there had to be just a level of like, I just need to get everyone out to make sure like, you know, obviously.
I got thrown into a door, so I'm going to make sure no one else is getting
Let's not do that.
I don't know about your tour guide, but I almost felt like my tour guide kind of like put it out there, and that's what happened to me, which I will save for later because I'm still working through my trauma.
Yeah.
But listen to your tour guides. They know what they're talking about. You know, they really do. And I would say they're not making a lot of that stuff up.
No. Clearly.
I mean, so this kind of rounds out our, you know, female serial killer episode, which take it or leave it, form your own opinions, guys. And no matter what we talk about in Charleston, it's going to be the most haunted place in Charleston.
Or the oldest.
Or the oldest, either one. But this is an episode I was really looking forward to. The three of us were really looking forward to because, you know, the other places are more locations that are really haunted. But like these are places that you don't even need to hear a ghost story. You know that they're haunted.
Yes.
Like you ever look at a house when you're driving, you're like, oh, that house is haunted as shit.
Oh
that
my
is
God.
So haunted.
Yeah.
And I feel like never having been there, but just like hearing these stories, like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course a dungeon is haunted.
Yeah.
Of course the old jail is haunted.
Well, you know what I find crazy, though, is because the building doesn't, like, I walked past that building so many times not realizing what was inside. Yeah. It's so unsuspecting. So, like,
that makes it scarier than the jail.
It's so much scarier, especially if you go, like, at night.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 Gilmore Girls references in an episode, you're welcome. Yeah. But the animatronic mannequins, it reminds me of the Gilmore Girls episode where they do that to like explain that
one house
of Stars Hollow.
Yeah.
But like there is a theme when I'm doing research for all the episodes that we're doing, and I think we've all come across it, is these tour guides, because you're doing the same thing over and over again, I feel like you cannot be a tour guide. And please feel free to chime in because you're the only one of us that is a tour guide.
Hello.
You can't be a skeptic and believe none of this crap is possible and be a tour guide. You have to kind of be open and be like, yeah, it is what it is. But like, that's why I'm here to tell their story.
You know, when I trained at the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, I was with someone else who actually is a teacher, and he loved the fact that it was a guy too, you know, because he was history and I am English, right? The literature side. And it's very interesting how he wound up like, he could really tell you every bit of history on that tour. I struggled with that because that's a lot to memorize. The names, the dates, the places, right? All the connections, blah, blah. I wound up getting the hang of it by telling the story. And it's because I love the stories. That's why we started this podcast, right?
Yeah.
The stories are the best part. And not for nothing, these stories that I haven't heard of, looking at I didn't go to the dungeons the last time that I was in Charleston. I mean, I can't wait to go back now.
Yeah.
And honestly, I really want, even though I've had an experience, I would totally want to have another one.
Same.
Because
I love that stuff.
That's just something incredible.
They also, like everything I was reading, every person who has no belief in the supernatural, they are the ones that are affected.
You got to get the skeptics first.
You do. And I kind of just want to tease, because we're wrapping up here, but I do just want to tease. We're talking about a lot of other experiences, right, that people had. The last episode of our season is next week, and we are kicking it off with our very own Deena's haunting story. And it's not a little one, folks.
Nope.
It's not a little one, but we are going to throw up on social media all the stuff that we talked about today. We're going to, once again, we have all of our sources compiled for you guys.
Lots of visuals,
because I also feel like we're trying a lot more this episode. We heard you guys. We all heard. We're trying to give you guys more visuals for the people that haven't been there.
And book references.
And just all those things that help create the visual, because I feel like that's so important to the story.
Well,
especially with this one.
There's so much. Like, we're just like touching the very surface.
Yeah,
like, you
for
can
sure.
dive into so much of this stuff, and like we would be here for years.
Yes,
well,
absolutely.
With that being said, again, we cannot wait for next week to tell you guys probably our spookiest episode yet. Also, it's going to be really fun. So we're going to end the season fun and also traumatizing. You'll need a therapist.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't already have one. I mean, I can't wait. So we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Rate and review.
Folktown is a production of Gotham West Studios. Our editor is Katie Yonner. Our associate producer is Grace Heerman. Our production coordinator is Nicole Vargas. Our senior content producer is Kyle Bosch. Our director of marketing is Dayelle Watts, and our executive producer is Tommy West. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Folktown Podcast.
Summer concerts, pool parties, chill nights under the stars. We're stocking up our closet so you're ready to look your best for all of it. At Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston, we're buying all things summer. So bring in your tees, tote bags, sandals, sunglasses, and more. We pay cash on the spot for gently loved name brand looks. Plato's Closet is the go-to destination for trend-forward teens and young adults who support local and shop sustainable. Visit Plato's Closet today. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.